Welcome back to another episode of Learn Dota. This episode is about ganking. It's a very important topic, so it's important that you guys pay attention. Ganking is how you move across the map without your opponent seeing you moving, and then you surprise, attack, and kill them when they don't expect it. To gank correctly takes a lot of different skills. Some of it is execution of your abilities, some of it is recognizing what is viable and possible and likely to be successful in a gank, and a lot of it is also just making sure that your opponents don't see you making movements. Ganking correctly has massive impacts on a game of Dota 2 because it means you've secured a kill on an enemy hero. That means you gain gold and experience, they lose gold and time, and you have a temporary hero advantage that can lead to objective pressure like towers and Roche. And while ganks feel great and all, knowing how and when to approach ganks is difficult. When you try to gank and it fails, you've wasted your time, and sometimes even lost a hero, which is sort of like ganking yourself and gifting the enemy team free money. So it sometimes feels like it's better to just sit around and hit creeps as fast as possible, because you're still getting net worth, right? Yeah, you're still getting farm, but the enemy team is too, and ganking correctly doesn't take too much time, maybe just a teleport to a different lane where they won't expect you. Some things to keep in mind when ganking. When you gank a hero, it's really important to maximize everything you do, otherwise you might lose out on a kill. Maximizing damage mostly comes down to attack movement, which we've covered before as interrupting your backswing animations and moving in between attacks so that you get more attacks in before your enemy is out of reach. Disables are pretty limited in the early game at low levels, and you don't have to move far to get some protection from your tower, so you need to maximize the short windows you have, or you might miss a kill. Maximizing your disables is also super important because a disabled enemy can't defend themselves and can't run to safety as rapidly. It helps to have stun bars turned on here because you can tell when an allied disable is about to run out and help you avoid stun stacking. Don't forget that you can also body block your opponent. It might seem counterintuitive to stop attacking just to delay their movement speed, but many stuns or slows have low cooldowns, so sometimes even blocking for 5 seconds while your ally attacks means you and your ally can cast a second round of spells that guarantees a kill. Alright, so that's ways to maximize your damage during a gank, but how do you choose which disables to use first? First, you have to assess what tools you have, what kinds of disables, and how survivable is the enemy hero. For example, trying to gank an anti-mage with an Undying and a Bristleback is never going to work, because you have no hard disables, just slows, so that gank isn't worth trying. But if the enemy carries a sniper instead, the gank is doable because sniper won't have escape tools, and your regular slows and damage will be able to secure a kill. However, knowing that you don't have stuns, sniper could always start a quick teleport to Fountain to escape to the gank, and your effort is wasted if you can't kill him before the teleport completes. If you are trying to kill an evasive hero like Anti-Mage, it's important to have stuns and disables to prevent him from blinking to safety, so let's instead imagine we have a Bristleback and Lion ready for this gank. Because any moment Anti-Mage isn't stunned or silenced will lead to his escape, it's important that the gank starts with a disable before Anti-Mage even realizes that he's in trouble. But here's the next problem. Earthspike has a bit of an animation on it, and the spell has a travel time that Anti-Mage could reflect with a spell shield, so it's better if you start with the quicker disable, which is Hex. Hex doesn't have a cast animation or travel time, so it's often better to start ganks with Hex and then to follow up with Earthspike once Hex is ending. Now, even if you've got everything I've gone over down perfectly, you still need to learn the most important part, how to approach your ganks. Ganks work best when they're a surprise. You want your enemy to realize they're getting ganked only when they're caught in the trap, so it's important to not be seen until you're about to initiate. The best way to do that is to spend time walking behind your opponent while obscured by trees, and then initiate the gank from behind. While it might feel like a waste of time to spend that much time walking in a large circle, the benefits are worth it. That's because players generally have their vision focused on the creep wave and not behind them, so they won't react as fast when you start the gank. They're also forced to run through you to safety, so you get more last hits in when ganking from behind, and you're guaranteed to land your disable because they'll be within cast range. If you approach a gank from the front, even landing your disable can be hard because creep vision will probably spot you while you're approaching and give the player time to run away if they're paying attention. Approaching from the back removes many of their options, so it's almost always the better move. Next up, when do you choose to move in? When you're in a lane normally, waiting for a last hit, you move back and forth sorta chaotically to dodge hooks and arrows. If you move into gank at the wrong time, they might already be running away from you with random movement, which might mean that they can stay out of cast range and escape. The best thing you can do to counteract that is to start moving in when they're about to go for a last hit. If you time it right, they're moving closer to the creep wave, a more dangerous position, and should stand still while they start their attack animation. And because you anticipated this, you can move in while they move in, and know that they'll just be a little bit more out of position, which increases your chance of securing a kill and making the time you spent ganking worth it. Just keep in mind that if the enemy wave is killed, your enemy is going to move on, so you've got to execute the gank before the entire wave gets last hit. You can't wait forever. So that's the how of executing ganks, but how do you even get in position in the first place? The main way is to avoid getting seen on the way to the gank. Keep in mind where the enemy typically gains vision from, so you can stop walking through it. Creeps are a big source of vision, and their day and night vision are 750 units. If you want to avoid getting spotted by creeps while you approach a gank, it's best to walk in the jungle next to the creep wave to swing past where the creeps meet and prepare to gank from behind. Towers have a pretty huge day vision, 1900 units, but a much smaller night vision of 800. It'll be a lot easier to avoid their vision during the night, but at least they can't move, so you should be able to avoid the obvious vision spots that they provide. Heroes are the biggest danger because most have a massive day vision of 1800 units, and they're the moving targets that you're hunting in the first place. At night, they're much easier to gank because the typical night vision is only 800 units, so they're less likely to see you coming. There's a few hero outliers to this, like Night Stalker, who can only see 800 units at day and 1800 units at night, or Sniper, who has 1800 day and 1400 night. The best natural vision hero is Slark, with his normal 1800 day vision and massive 1800 night vision. It's much harder to gank him at nighttime as a result, and it's important that you don't forget, or you're going to waste time trying to surprise him. So with vision ranges in mind, you need to avoid getting spotted on the way to your gank because your opponents will see you coming. Wards also make this harder. What are the most common ward spots that are placed? That's probably rune spots and areas near shrines. Basically places that players walk through often when going to other destinations. So with that in mind, maybe it's worth it for you to walk around those spots on the way to your gank. I've been yelling at you guys to save time in everything you do, and now I'm telling you to walk the long ways. The reason it's often okay here is because all it takes is walking in vision one time for enemies to be able to guess your destination and ruin your gank. It's easy to mess up your gank with a small mistake, but if you move a little safer, there's a lower chance that failure happens. You can of course use Smoke of Deceit to lessen these worries since it makes you invisible to vision until you get within 1025 range of heroes or towers, and it's encouraged since spending 80 gold to secure an important kill is super worthwhile. But alas, smokes are limited, so you can't use them for every gank. But if it's an important kill on a hero who's getting out of control, or is trying to farm an important item, then spending a smoke to bring a hero or two with you on a gank is super worthwhile. Sometimes when you get in position for a gank, your opponents surprisingly walk back to the safety of their tower at the perfect time. That probably means they have a ward that spotted you during your rotation, or a ward in lane that's spotting you while you wait for the right moment. If that's the case, it helps to try and hide in trees to see if they go back to last hitting. If not, the ward is probably there, and you could always attempt to deward a bit later with a sentry. If you're successful, that makes follow-up ganks much easier. In terms of ganking in the late game, smokes are generally a bit safer because it's harder to know where the enemy placed their wards. However, it's generally better to use smoke ganks during the daytime. The reason is because your vision range at night is only 800 compared to the smoke break range of 1025. That means your smoke will break and you'll realize that you're near an enemy hero, but you won't know exactly where they are until you get vision of the enemy and they now also have vision of you. To mitigate this, it helps to have an invisible hero lead your smoke gank to spot the enemy. You can also smoke gank towards a part of the map where you already have observer wards placed so that you can target the person that you want. It's also really smart to bring observer wards with if you're smoke ganking at nighttime, because you can place them when your smoke breaks and have a better chance to initiate properly. And of course, always bring detection when ganking heroes that can go invisible. Dusts are mandatory if they have invisible heroes when you're smoke ganking. You can use the smokes to reveal the invisible hero because your smoke debuff only goes away due to enemy heroes or towers. And that covers most of the important principles of ganking to be aware of. Try to avoid letting the enemy team see you because they'll be able to avoid your ganks. The next Learn Dota episode is called Setting Tempo. It's about using these ganking skills and some of the other methods to create action around the map that benefits your team and ultimately gives you wins. Thanks for watching, and make sure you check out the next one.